Good evening, dear listener. Settle into the quiet of this moment, where the world slows and the stars begin to peek through the velvet sky. Imagine a gentle breeze rustling the leaves of an ancient oak, its branches swaying over a patchwork of fields stretching into the distance. The air carries the faint scent of damp earth and straw, a reminder of lives tethered to the land. Tonight, we slip into the world of a medieval farmer in Europe, where every day is a dance with the soil, the seasons, and the whims of those above you. This is no tale of kings or knights, but of you, yes, you, rising before dawn, your hands calloused, your heart steady, in a life that is as relentless as it is enduring. Let's begin. You awake to the crow of a rooster, its shrill cry piercing the pre-dawn chill. Your breath clouds in the dim light of your cottage, a cramped space of wattle and daub where the smell of smoke lingers from last night's fire. The straw mattress beneath you prickles through your thin tunic, and your bones ache from yesterday's labor. Outside, the world is still cloaked in gray, but there's no lingering in this life. You pull on your rough woolen hose, the fabric scratching your legs, and lace up boots that have long since molded to the shape of your feet. The day's work beckons, and the Lord's fields won't wait. You step into the morning, the air sharp against your face. The village is stirring, dogs bark, a neighbor's door creaks, and the distant clang of a blacksmith's hammer echoes. You trudge toward the open fields, a yoke across your shoulders, buckets swaying with each step. These fields, vast and muddy, belong to the Lord, and you're bound to them as a serf. The Magna Carta of 1215, that distant promise of rights, means little here in your village. Your life is governed by custom, by the Lord's steward who tallies your labor, and by the ever-present need to coax enough grain from this stubborn earth to feed your family and appease those above you. The soil is heavy today, churned by recent rains into a thick, clinging muck. You sink ankle-deep with every step, the cold seeping through your boots. Your task is plowing, a grueling dance with an ox-drawn ard, a wooden plow that barely scratches the surface. The ox, a beast as weary as you, snorts and resists, its breath steaming in the dawn. You grip the handles, your palms raw, and lean into the work. The field stretches endlessly before you, a sea of earth that demands your sweat. By noon, your shoulders burn, and the sun, finally breaking through the clouds, offers no kindness, only a reminder of the hours left to toil. Amid this grind, there's a peculiar detail that catches your eye, a small charm tied to the ox's yoke, a braided straw figure meant to ward off evil spirits. The village wise woman insists it protects the beast from curses, and though you're not entirely convinced, you let it be. Superstition weaves through this life like thread through cloth. And who are you to question what might keep the harvest safe? It's a quirky habit, this blending of faith and folklore, but it's as much a part of your world as the plow in your hands. You pause to wipe sweat from your brow, glancing at the other farmers scattered across the fields. Some are freemen, owning a scrap of land, but most, like you, are serfs, bound to the Lord's will. The division is subtle but ever-present. Freemen stand a bit straighter, their eyes less wary. Historians still debate whether serfdom was as rigid as later tales suggest, with some arguing you had small freedoms, like keeping a garden plot or selling surplus at market. But freedom, in this moment, feels like a word from another tongue. Your days are not your own. A faint chuckle escapes you as you notice the ox eyeing a patch of wildflowers, as if it, too, dreams of a softer life. If only you could trade places. You muse. Let the beast plow while you munch clover. It's a fleeting jest, one that fades as the steward rides by on his horse, his gaze sharp. You lower your eyes and push on. The plow's rhythm a steady beat against the morning's quiet. Another jest flits through your mind. Perhaps the Lord's hounds eat better than you do, with their scraps of venison. The thought stings more than it amuses. By late afternoon, your stomach growls, a hollow reminder of the meager porridge you ate at dawn. You've a crust of bread tucked in your belt. But it's for later, when the hunger becomes unbearable. The fields are alive now with workers, women sowing seeds, children scaring crows with sticks. You catch a snippet of gossip about a neighbor's cow that wandered into the Lord's orchard, a minor scandal that'll be the talk of the village tonight. It's a small rebellion against the monotony. These whispered tales, and you savor them like a sip of ale. As the sun dips low, painting the sky in hues of amber, you finish your strip of plowland. Your hands throb, your back protests. But there's a quiet pride in the furrows you've carved. You glance at the charm on the yoke again, wondering if it's done its job. Maybe it has, you think, half smiling. After all, the ox hasn't bolted, and you've survived another day. You sling the yoke over your shoulder and turn toward home, the village silhouetted against the twilight. The fields will call again tomorrow. But for now, you've earned a moment's rest. The life of a medieval farmer is no ballad, no tapestry of glory. It's you here, in the mud, with the weight of the world on your shoulders. Yet there's something in this struggle, something enduring, that whispers of resilience. History doesn't sing of you, but it's built on your labor. And as you walk home, the stars beginning to glitter above, you carry that truth quietly, like a seed waiting for spring. The dawn's chill lingers as you trudge back to the fields. Your boots still damp from yesterday's mud. The world is hushed, save for the soft coo of doves and the creak of a distant cart. You can almost taste the earth in the air, that heavy, loamy scent that clings to your clothes and skin. Last night's sleep was too brief, a fleeting escape in your smoky cottage, and now the fields call you back, relentless as ever. Your hands, rough as tree bark, grip the familiar tools of your trade, and you brace for another day of bending the land to your will, or, more accurately, to the Lord's. You reach the field where your ox waits, its breath puffing in the morning mist. The art plow from yesterday sits nearby, its wooden frame worn smooth by years of use. This is your world. A handful of crude tools that feel like extensions of your body. There's the plow, of course, but also a sickle with a blade dulled from countless harvests, a flail for threshing grain, and a mattock for breaking up stubborn clods. None are elegant, iron is scarce, reserved for the Lord's nights or the church's bells. Your tools are wood and sweat, and they break as often as they work. You recall the time your sickle snapped mid-harvest, forcing slashed tices, leaving you cursing the saints as you borrowed a neighbor's blade. The memory brings a wry smile. Your life is a constant negotiation with things that refuse to cooperate, be it tools or the land itself. You set to work, guiding the plow through the heavy soil. Each step is a battle, the earth resisting like a stubborn child. Your muscles strain, and sweat beads on your brow despite the cool air. The plow's shallow furrows are barely enough to prepare the field for sowing, and you know the yield will be modest at best. The Doomsday Book of 1086, that grand survey of England's lands, recorded villages like yours as little more than lists of plowlands and serfs, but it never captured the sheer effort behind each furrow. You wonder if those scribes ever lifted a plow. Probably not. You think, chuckling softly. Their hands were stained with ink, not dirt. The physical toll is undeniable. Your back aches from stooping, your shoulders not from the plow's weight. Blisters form where the handles rub your palms, and you wrap them in scraps of cloth, a trick you learned from your father. You're young, barely past 20, but your body feels older, worn by years of this labor. You glance at the other farmers, their faces etched with the same fatigue. Old man Cedric, who claims he's seen 50 winters, moves slower each year, his cough a grim reminder of the damp that seeps into your bones. Historians still debate whether medieval farmers lived past 40, with some arguing better diets and good years stretched lifespans. But good years feel like myths, and Cedric's hacking cough tells a different story. A quirky detail catches your eye as you pause to catch your breath, a small pile of stones at the field's edge, arranged in a rough circle. The village children call it a fairy ring, claiming spirits dance there under the moon. You roll your eyes but leave the stones be. Last year, a lad kicked them over, and his cow went dry the next day. Coincidence, surely, but you're not one to tempt fate. These odd traditions, charms on yokes, stones in fields, are the village's quiet rebellion against a world that offers little control. You shake your head, amused. If fairies could plow, you'd leave them an offering of your best ale. The sun climbs higher, warming your back but offering no reprieve. You switch tasks, scattering barley seeds from a sack slung over your shoulder. The motion is rhythmic, almost soothing. Like a whispered prayer. You imagine the seeds taking root, green shoots piercing the earth by spring. But the vision fades as you recall last year's meager harvest. Barely enough to fill the Lord's granary, and your own larder. Your stomach rumbles, and you nibble a crust of rye bread, its grit catching in your teeth. It's no feast, but it keeps you moving. You joke to yourself that the crows, circling above, eat better, snatching stray seeds. If only you could train them to plow, you muse, smirking. The field buzzes with small sounds. The ox's low grunt, the chatter of women planting nearby, the rustle of wind through distant trees. You catch a snippet of gossip, a neighbor's daughter caught kissing a peddler behind the church. The village will hum with it tonight, a brief spark of intrigue in your endless days. You envy the peddler's freedom, his cart rolling to towns you'll never see. Your world is this village, these fields, and the Lord's manor looming on the hill. Freedom is a word for troubadours, not farmers. As noon approaches, you pause to stretch, your spine popping like dry twigs. The sky is clear. A rare gift, but you know better than to trust it. A storm could roll in by dusk, undoing your work. You glance at the fairy ring again, half tempted to toss a pebble into it, just in case. Another jest crosses your mind. Maybe the fairies could convince the Lord to lower his tithe. You snort, shaking your head. The Lord's greed is as fixed as the stars. You return to sewing. The sack lighter now, but your steps heavier. The women's voices fade as they move to another field, leaving you with the ox and the silence. You think of your cottage, where your wife is kneading dough, her hands as calloused as yours. Tonight you'll share a thin stew, maybe tell a story to your son about knights or dragons, anything but fields. The thought softens the ache in your chest, a small anchor in this sea of toil. The sun arcs westward, casting long shadows across the furrows. You finish sewing your strip and sling the empty sack over your shoulder. The ox plods beside you, its pace as steady as your own. You pass the fairy ring, giving it a nod, just in case. The fields stretch behind you, a testament to your labor, but they offer no praise. You're just another serf, another pair of hands. Yet as you walk toward the village, the earth firm beneath your boots, you feel a quiet stubbornness. This land may break you, but not today. The morning air bites at your knuckles as you leave the cottage. The faint glow of dawn barely warming the horizon. The village is a murmur of sounds, cows lowing, a baby's cry, the crackle of a neighbor's fire. You sling a sack of tools over your shoulder. The weight familiar but never light, and head to the fields. The earth smells of frost and decay, a reminder that winter looms, and with it, the hunger that gnaws at your bones. Yesterday's sowing left your hands stiff, but there's no pause in this life. The fields, the Lord, the seasons, they all demand more than you have to give. You reach your strip of land, where the soil lies dark and uneven, waiting for the next task. Today you're weeding, crouching low to tug at stubborn roots that choke the barley you sowed. Your fingers, cracked from cold, fumble in the dirt, and each weed feels like a small defiance against your hopes for a decent harvest. Hunger is your constant shadow, a dull ache that never fully leaves. Last night's meal was a thin gruel of barley and herbs, stretched to feed your family of 4. You think of the bread you ate 2 days ago, gritty but filling, and your mouth waters at the memory. In this world, a full belly is a rare guest, and you're no stranger to the hollow pang that wakes you before dawn. The harvest of 1347, a year etched in village memory, was particularly cruel. A wet summer drowned the crops, leaving you with moldy grain and a larder that emptied too soon. You recall the winter that followed, when your son's cheeks grew gaunt, and your wife's cough lingered. The village lost 3 children that year, their small graves marked by wooden crosses near the church. Hunger wasn't just a feeling, it was a thief, stealing strength, hope, and sometimes lives. You push the memory down, focusing on the weed in your hand, its roots clinging to the earth like a miser's gold. You glance across the field, where other farmers bend to similar tasks. Agnes, a widow with a sharp tongue, mutters about the Lord's granary, stuffed with grain, while her children eat broth. You nod, sharing her quiet resentment. The Lord takes a third of your harvest. Sometimes more if the steward's in a foul mood. What's left must feed your family, pay the church's tithe, and seed next year's crop. You joke to yourself that the rats in the Lord's barn eat better than you, their bellies full of your barley. It's a bitter jest, but it keeps you moving. A peculiar detail catches your attention as you work. A small bundle of dried herbs tucked into your belt, a gift from the village wise woman. She claims it wards off hunger's curse. Though you suspect it's just mint and thyme. You keep it anyway, its faint scent a reminder of her kindness. The wise woman's quirks, herbs, charms, muttered rhymes, are a village staple. Like the fairy ring you passed yesterday. You wonder if she's ever gone hungry herself, with her hut full of strange brews. Probably not, you think, smirking. Her potions might scare even the rats away. The sun climbs, its weak light doing little to warm your back. You shift to another patch, your knees aching from hours of crouching. The weeds are relentless, their roots tangled deep, and you curse under your breath as one snaps, leaving half its strength in the soil. Your mind drifts to the stories of bountiful harvests in distant lands, whispered by peddlers who pass through. Egypt, they say, has rivers that flood with riches, not ruin. You shake your head. Such tales are for dreamers, not farmers. Your world is this field, this village, this hunger. Historians still debate whether medieval diets were as poor as tales suggest. With some claiming peasants ate well in good years, with cheese, ale, and even meat. But good years are like comets, rare and fleeting. You recall last spring, when a neighbor slaughtered a pig and shared a scrap of fat. It melted on your tongue, a luxury you savored for days. Now your meals are porridge or pottage, maybe a turnip if you're lucky. You jest that your stomach must think you're fasting for Lent year-round. The thought draws a dry chuckle, but it fades as you tug another weed. The village hums with small distractions. A child chases a stray goose, its honks echoing across the fields. You hear Agnes scolding her son for stepping on a seedling, her voice carrying that mix of exasperation and love you know too well. These moments, fleeting as they are, stitch the village together. You think of your own son, who's off scaring crows today, his small frame darting through the fields. You hope he eats enough tonight. Hope the harvest spares him the gauntness you see in too many faces. As noon nears, you pause to stretch, your spine protesting with a sharp twinge. The sky is gray, heavy with the promise of rain. You nibble a crust of bread, its staleness a poor comfort, and wash it down with a sip of water from a flask. The herbs in your belt catch the breeze, their scent mingling with the earth's musk. You wonder if they're working, if hunger's curse can be charmed away. Another jest crosses your mind. Maybe you should tie herbs to the Lord's steward, see if it softens his heart. You snort, shaking your head, and return to work. The afternoon drags, each weed a small victory against the land's resistance. You think of your cottage, where your wife is boiling nettles for tonight's meal. It won't fill you, but it'll keep you alive. You picture her hands, as rough as yours, stirring the pot with care. That image, simple as it is, pulls you through the day. The fields offer no mercy. But home, however humble, offers warmth. As the light fades, you gather your tools, the sack heavier now with fatigue. The fields stretch behind you, a patchwork of hope and struggle. You pass Agnes, who offers a tired nod, and you return it, a silent pact between those who know hunger's weight. The herbs sway at your belt, their scent faint but stubborn. You're not sure if they've kept the curse at bay, but you're still here, still fighting. And in this life, that's enough. The twilight wraps the village in a soft gray veil as you trudge home. The day's labor clinging to your bones like damp wool. The air smells of wood smoke and wet straw, and the distant bleat of sheep fades into the evening's hush. Your cottage is a faint silhouette against the darkening sky, but your mind is still in the fields, where the Lord's shadow looms larger than any harvest. You rub your aching hands, the calluses rough under your thumbs, and feel the weight of his demands pressing down, heavier than the plow you pushed all day. You step inside, the warmth of the small fire a fleeting comfort. Your wife stirs a pot of pottage, its steam carrying the faint scent of onions and herbs. You exchange a tired nod, words unnecessary after years of shared struggle. As you sit on a stool, the reality of your life as a serf settles over you like dust. The Lord, ensconced in his manor on the hill, owns the fields, the mill, even the oven where your bread is baked. You own little, your tools, your labor, and the thin hope of surviving another season. The feudal system, rigid as the stone walls of the manor, binds you to this land and its master. You think back to last week, when the steward came to collect the Lord's share. It was 1348, a year when the crops were decent but never enough. You handed over sacks of barley and rye, your heart sinking as the cart rolled away. The Lord takes a third, sometimes half, depending on his whims or the steward's mood. Then there's the boon work, extra days you owe. Like harvesting his fields before your own. You recall the time you worked until midnight under torchlight, your hands bleeding, only to return to your own neglected plot. The memory stings. And you jest to yourself that the Lord's hounds probably sleep on softer straw than you do. It's a small rebellion, that thought, but it keeps the bitterness at bay. The manor's grip extends beyond crops. You pay to use the mill, a creaking wooden beast that grinds your grain into flour, for a price. Baking in the Lord's oven costs another fee. And if you dare grind your own grain or bake at home, the steward's fines are swift. You've heard tales of serfs caught with hand mills, their tools smashed, their families left hungrier. You shake your head, amused despite yourself. The Lord's greed is so thorough, you muse, he'd probably charge you for breathing if he could. The thought draws a dry chuckle. But it fades as you sip the watery pottage. A quirky detail lightens the moment, the steward's hat, a garish thing with a peacock feather, bobbing as he rides through the village. The children mimic it, strutting with sticks tucked into their caps, and even you can't help but smirk. It's absurd, that feather, a splash of vanity in a world of mud and toil. You wonder where he got it, some peddler's cart, maybe, or a gift from the Lord's wife. Either way, it's a village jest, a small defiance whispered behind his back. Remember the fairy ring from the fields? This hat is its cousin, a spark of the ridiculous in your gray days. You finish your meal, the bowl scraped clean. Your son, curled by the fire, asks about the manor, his eyes wide with a child's curiosity. You tell him it's a place of stone and wealth, but you don't mention the fear it inspires. The Lord's power is absolute. His court a place where disputes are settled, often in his favor. Historians still debate whether lords were as tyrannical as later tales paint them. With some arguing they depended on serfs' goodwill to keep the manor running. But goodwill feels like a distant star when the steward's tallying your debts, his quill scratching like a vulture's claw. Outside, the night is full, the stars hidden by clouds. You step out to check the pigs, their grunts a familiar comfort. The pen, patched with sticks and mud, is yours. A small defiance against the Lord's reach. The pigs are your wealth, meager as it is, 2 sows and a litter, fattened on scraps and acorns. If you're lucky, you'll sell a piglet at market. Maybe buy a new sickle or a length of cloth. But the Lord's men watch even this, demanding a fee for grazing rights. You jest that they tax the pig's squeals if they could. And the thought brings a fleeting grin. The village is quiet now, save for the soft patter of rain on thatch. You think of the other serfs, each in their own cottages, each carrying the same burdens. There's Agnes, who lost her husband to fever and now owes extra labor to keep her plot. There's Cedric, his cough worse each winter, still plowing beside you. You're bound together. Not just by the Lord's rule but by the shared weight of survival. You recall the time the village pooled grain to help a family after a fire, a rare moment when the manor's shadow felt lighter. As you return inside, the fire's glow casts flickering shadows on the walls. Your wife is mending a tunic, her needle flashing in the dim light. You sit beside her. The silence between you warm despite the cold. The Lord's demands, the steward's feather, the endless fees, they're all part of this life, as fixed as the seasons. Yet there's a stubbornness in you. A refusal to break. You think of the pigs, the fields, the pottage you shared. It's not much, but it's yours. You lie down on the straw mattress, the day's ache settling into your bones. The rain drums softly, a lullaby for the weary. You think of the steward's hat again, that absurd feather, and smile into the dark. Tomorrow, you'll face the fields, the Lord, the hunger. But tonight, you rest, your dreams your own, if only for a few hours. The manor looms, but so does your resilience, quiet as the earth you till. The morning greets you with a damp mist, curling through the village like a ghost. You step out, the air cool against your face, carrying the scent of wet thatch and the faint tang of manure. Your boots squelch in the mud as you head to the fields, the familiar ache in your shoulders a reminder of yesterday's toil. The Lord's manor looms on the hill, its stone walls indifferent to the lives below. But today, your mind drifts not to the fields or the steward's peacock feather, but to the village itself, its whispers, its quirks, its fleeting moments of joy that stitch your days together. You reach the common pasture, where you're tasked with mending a fence to keep the Lord's sheep from straying. The wood is splintered, the posts wobbly, and you set to work with a mallet, its dull thud blending with the bleat of lambs. Around you, the village hums with life. Women carry baskets to the stream, their laughter soft but sharp. Children dart through the lanes, chasing a leather ball, their shouts a rare burst of lightness. You pause, leaning on a post, and let the sounds wash over you. This is your world, small and worn, but alive with stories that make the labor bearable. One story, fresh as the morning dew, has the village buzzing. Old widow Marjorie, who tends the Lord's beehives, claims she saw a fox with two tails near the churchyard. A sign of mischief, she insists, her eyes wide as she told the tale at last night's fire. You overheard it while sharing a cup of weak ale with neighbors, the room thick with smoke and gossip. Two-tailed foxes aren't real, you think, but Marjorie's conviction is unshakable. And now half the village is checking their hen coops twice. You chuckle, hammering a nail. If foxes have two tails, maybe the Lord's pigs will start paying rent. The jest lingers, a spark of amusement in the gray dawn. Gossip is the village's lifeblood, a currency traded podunk-like exchange for the labor that keeps you tethered to the land. In 1348, as the Black Death loomed, such tales were a distraction from the grind. You recall the peasants' revolt of 1381, when serfs and freemen, fed up with taxes and oppression, marched on London. The revolt was crushed, but its echo lingered in whispered stories, passed like secrets over the fire. You don't speak of rebellion, too risky with the steward's ears everywhere, but you savor these tales. Each one a tiny rebellion against the Lord's rule. They're as vital as bread, feeding your spirit when your belly's empty. A quirky detail catches your eye as you work. A small carving on the fence post, a crude spiral etched by some idle hand. The children say it's a charm to keep wolves away, though you've never seen a wolf here. You trace it with your finger, amused by the village's love of such oddities. Like the fairy ring in the fields or Marjorie's fox, these quirks are a quiet defiance. A way to claim a sliver of control in a world ruled by lords and seasons. You wonder who carved it, maybe young Thomas, who fancies himself a mystic. You smirk, imagining him chanting spells over the sheep. If only spirals could mend fences, you muse, your hammer swinging. The sun breaks through the mist, casting a pale light over the pasture. You wipe sweat from your brow, your tunic damp despite the cool air. The fence is nearly done, each nail a small victory. You think of the village's other stories. The peddler who swore he saw a mermaid in the river, the blacksmith's wife who dreams of saints. These tales, half believed, are your escape, like the ale you sip on feast days. They remind you of the world beyond the fields, even if you'll never see it. Historians still debate whether such folklore strengthened peasant communities or distracted them from their plight. You don't care for debates. What matters is the warmth of a shared story, the way it binds you to Agnes, Cedric, and the rest. You pause to stretch, your back creaking like an old gate. Across the pasture, Agnes waves, her shawl flapping like a flag. You nod back, grateful for her sharp wit, her tales of the Lord's clumsy son tripping in the manor's hall. You jest to yourself that if storytelling were a crop, Agnes would feed the village all winter. The thought brings a grin, but it fades as you hammer the last nail. The fence is sturdy, but your hands throb, and the Lord's sheep will never thank you. The village's rhythm carries on. A cart rumbles by, its driver humming a tune you half know. You think of your wife, kneading dough in the cottage, her hands as worn as yours. Tonight, you'll share pottage and stories, maybe Marjorie's fox or the spiral on the post. Your son will listen, his eyes bright, and you'll weave a tale of knights or dragons, anything to spark his dreams. These moments, brief as a summer day, are what keep you tethered to this life, despite the Lord's shadow. As noon approaches, you gather your tools, the mallet heavy in your hand. The pasture stretches before you, green and dotted with sheep, a scene unchanged for generations. You glance at the spiral carving again, its curves catching the light. Maybe it does keep wolves at bay, you think, half smiling. Or maybe it's just a mark of someone like you, etching hope into the wood. You turn toward home, the village's whispers trailing behind you, a soft chorus against the silence of the fields. The sky hangs low, heavy with clouds that promise rain. As you step out into the morning's damp embrace, the village is a blur of mist and shadow, the air thick with the scent of wet earth and the faint musk of livestock. Your cloak, patched and threadbare, offers little shield against the chill, but you pull it tight and head to the fields. The memory of Marjorie's two-tailed fox lingers, a fleeting smile in your mind. But it fades as you feel the weight of the season pressing down. Today, you're repairing a ditch to drain the sodden fields, a task as endless as the weather itself. You reach the edge of your plot, where water pools in muddy hollows, threatening the barley you sowed weeks ago. The ditch, clogged with leaves and silt, is your enemy today, and you wield a spade with weary determination. Each scoop of mud is heavy, the wet earth clinging to the blade like a grudge. Your boots sink deeper with every step, the cold seeping into your toes. The weather is no mere backdrop in this life, it's a force that shapes your days, your harvests, your survival. You think of the Great Famine of 1315 to 1317, when relentless rains drowned crops across Europe, leaving villages like yours to starve. The elders still speak of it, their voices low, as if the clouds might overhear and return. The spade bites into the earth, and you feel the strain in your shoulders, a dull ache that's become your constant companion. The clouds above churn, gray and unforgiving, and you know rain could undo your work in hours. You recall last spring, when a flood swept through, turning fields to lakes and washing away half the village's seed grain. You went to bed hungry for weeks, your wife's face tight with worry as she rationed the last of the rye. Now you dig faster, as if you could outrun the sky. You jest to yourself that the clouds must be the Lord's kin, always taking more than they give. The thought brings a wry chuckle, but it's swallowed by the squelch of mud. A quirky detail catches your eye as you work, a small frog, perched on a stone in the ditch, its eyes like tiny jewels. The children call these rain singers, claiming they summon storms with their croaks. You pause, watching it hop into the water, and wonder if it's to blame for the weather. The village loves its odd beliefs, foxes with two tails, spirals on fences, frogs that sing for rain. You shake your head, amused. If frogs could control the sky, you muse, you'd bribe them with a handful of barley. The image lingers, a fleeting escape from the spade's weight. The morning drags, each scoop of mud a small defiance against the flood. Across the field, other farmers battle similar tasks, mending fences, clearing debris. praying the crops survive. You catch Agnes's voice, cursing as she wrestles a branch from her own ditch. Her grit is a comfort, a reminder you're not alone in this fight. Historians still debate whether medieval farmers could predict the weather, with some pointing to almanacs and others to folklore like rain singers. You don't need scrolls or songs to know the sky's mood. It's written in the ache of your hands, the mud on your boots. The wind picks up, carrying a faint tang of salt from distant seas you'll never see. You think of the peddlers' tales, their stories of lands where the sun always shines. Here, the seasons are a gamble. And you're no gambler. A dry summer can parch the fields, a wet one can drown them, and a late frost can kill the shoots you've nursed. You recall the charm on the ox's yoke, the one meant to protect the harvest. Maybe you need one for the weather, you jest, smirking as you dig. If only the wise woman sowed sunshine in her herb bundles. Noon creeps closer, and your stomach growls, a sharp reminder of the bread you left at home. You nibble a scrap of cheese, its tang a rare treat, and sip water from a flask. The frog is gone, but its stone remains, slick with drizzle. You wonder if the children are right, if it's out there croaking up a storm. The thought is absurd, but absurdity is a luxury in this life, like the ale you share on feast days. You think of your son, who loves chasing frogs, his laughter a sound that cuts through the gray. You'll tell him about the rain singer tonight, make it a story to spark his smile. The ditch is nearly clear, the water flowing sluggishly toward the stream. Your arms burn, your back protests, but there's a quiet pride in the work. You glance at the barley, its green tips just piercing the soil, and hope it holds against the rain. The clouds thicken, and a drop lands on your cheek, then another. You curse softly, pulling your cloak tighter. The weather doesn't care for your labor, your hunger, your hopes. It's as impartial as the Lord, and twice as powerful. As the light fades, you gather your tools, the spade caked with mud. The fields stretch around you, a patchwork of struggle and stubbornness. You pass Agnes, who offers a tired grin, her hands as filthy as yours. You nod back. A silent pact between those who know the sky's weight. The rain singers, the floods, the endless ditches, they're all part of this life, as fixed as the earth you till. Yet you keep digging. Keep hoping, because what else can you do? You turn toward home, the village a faint glow through the mist. The rain falls harder now, soaking your cloak, but you think of the fire waiting. The pottage, your wife's quiet strength. The frog's stone glints in the dusk, and you smile, half believing it's mocking you. Tomorrow, you'll face the fields again, the weather, the Lord. But tonight you'll dry your boots and tell a story, weaving hope into the dark. The morning is soft, the air heavy with the scent of damp straw and the faint chime of the church bell calling the village to prayer. You pull your cloak tighter, its wool sodden from yesterday's rain, and step into the lane. The fields can wait an hour. Sunday belongs to the church, and you, like every soul in this village, are expected at Massachusetts. The path to the stone chapel is slick with mud, your boots leaving prints beside those of your neighbors. Above, the sky is a patchwork of gray and gold, as if the heavens can't decide whether to bless or curse you today. You think of the rain singer frog, its jewel-like eyes, and wonder if it's still croaking somewhere in the ditches. You slip into the church, its cool air sharp with the smell of wax and old wood. The congregation is a sea of rough tunics and weary faces, their whispers hushed under the priest's stern gaze. You find a spot near the back, your wife and son beside you, and kneel on the cold stone floor. The Latin chants roll over you, incomprehensible but familiar, a rhythm as steady as the plow. The church is the heartbeat of this life, its rules and rituals binding you as tightly as the Lord's demands. In 1348, with the Black Death creeping closer, faith was both solace and shackle, promising salvation while demanding your coin and crops. The priest speaks of sin and redemption, his voice echoing off the walls. You try to focus, but your mind drifts to the tithe you'll owe after harvest, a tenth of your grain, your pigs, even the apples from your scraggly tree. The church's granary is never empty, you think, unlike your own. You recall last year, when the priest scolded a neighbor for shorting the tithe, his words sharp as a flail. You jest to yourself that the angels must be counting barley kernels in heaven, making sure you've paid your share. The thought brings a faint smirk, but you hide it, bowing your head as the congregation murmurs a prayer. A quirky detail catches your eye. A small carving on the pew, a tiny cross with vines twining around it, etched by some restless hand. The priest would call it sacrilege, but you find it charming. Like the spiral on the fence, or the charm on the ox's yoke. The village has a knack for leaving its mark, weaving faith with folklore. You imagine young Thomas, the would-be mystic, sneaking a knife to make this sign, hoping it brings him luck. You chuckle softly, picturing him praying for a sweetheart instead of salvation. If only vines could grow you a better harvest, you muse, your knees aching against the stone. The mass drags on, the air thick with incense, and the rustle of shifting bodies. You glance at your son, his small hands clasped, his eyes wide with the priest's tales of miracles. You envy his faith, untested by years of hunger and toil. The church offers hope, yes, but it also takes your labor, your grain, your Sundays. Historians still debate whether the medieval church exploited peasants or sustained them, with some arguing its charity balanced its greed. Charity feels distant when you're counting apples for the tithe, but you cling to the rituals, if only for the quiet they bring. Outside, the bell tolls, signaling the end of Mass. You step into the light, the village stirring with chatter as families linger by the churchyard. Agnes is there, her shawl bright against the grey stones, swapping stories with widow Marjorie. You catch a snippet about a candle that burned blue last night, another omen to fuel the village's whispers. You smile, shaking your head. The church frowns on such talk. But it's as much a part of your faith as the priest's sermons. You think of the herbs at your belt, meant to ward off hunger, and wonder if they'd work on tithes. The fields call. But you linger a moment, watching your son chase a friend through the grass. The church's shadow is long, its rules shaping your days, when to work, when to rest, when to pray. Yet there's comfort in its rhythm, a steadiness that anchors you when the seasons turn cruel. You recall the time the priest blessed the fields after a drought, his prayers mingling with the wise woman's chants. The crops survived, and you're still not sure of who to thank. You jest that maybe the rain singer frog deserves a saint's name. And the thought draws a quiet laugh. You start toward home, the village alive with small sounds, the creak of a cart, the cluck of hens, the murmur of gossip. Your wife walks beside you, her hand brushing yours, a warmth that cuts through the morning's chill. Tonight you'll share pottage and stories, maybe tell your son about the carved vine, spinning it into a tale of hidden blessings. These moments, brief as a candle's flame, are what keep you going, despite the church's tithes and the Lord's greed. As you near the cottage, the sky clears, a sliver of sun breaking through. You glance at the church, its steeple sharp against the clouds, and feel a mix of reverence and resentment. The priest's words echo in your mind: work, pray, endure. You'll do all three, because you must. The fields wait, the tithe looms, but so does your stubbornness, quiet as the vines on that pew. You push open the door. The scent of warm bread greeting you, and for a moment, the world feels lighter. The air is thick with the scent of damp earth and fading summer blooms as you step into the morning, your breath clouding in the early chill. The village feels quieter today, the usual hum of voices and clattering carts muted, as if the world holds its breath. You pull your cloak tight. Its patches rough against your skin, and head to the fields, a sickle slung over your shoulder. The memory of Sunday's Mass lingers, the carved vine, the priest's droning voice, but a heavier weight presses on you now. Whispers of sickness have crept into the village, carried on the lips of peddlers and the creak of passing wagons. You try to push the thought away, but it clings like the mud on your boots. You reach your plot, where the barley stands tall, its golden heads bowing under their own weight. Today, you're harvesting, a task that should bring hope but feels like a race against time. The sky is clear, a rare gift, but the air carries a strange stillness, as if the birds know something you don't. You swing the sickle, its blade catching the light, and the stalks fall in neat rows. Each cut is a prayer for enough grain to fill the Lord's granary and your own larder. But the whispers of sickness, fever, swelling, death, make every swing feel urgent, as if you could outpace the shadow creeping closer. The Black Death, that grim specter of 1348 to 1351, is no longer a rumor but a reality. It swept through Europe, claiming lives like a scythe through wheat, and your village is not spared. You recall the first signs. A neighbor's cough that wouldn't fade, a child's fever that burned too hot. Now, empty cottages dot the lanes, their doors marked with crude crosses. You pass one on your way to the fields. Its thatch sagging, and avert your eyes. The plague takes without reason, young, old, serf, freeman. You grip the sickle tighter, as if work could keep it at bay. You jest to yourself that the Lord's steward might tax the plague for trespassing, but the thought sours, no humor in it. A quirky detail breaks the grim rhythm of your task, a small straw doll. Half buried in the stubble, its button eyes staring up at you. The children make these, calling them harvest spirits, meant to thank the fields for their yield. You pick it up. Its rough texture oddly comforting, and tuck it into your belt beside the wise woman's herbs. The village clings to such quirks, rain singers, fairy rings, straw dolls, as if they could ward off the unseen. You smile faintly, picturing your son crafting this doll, his small hands weaving straw with care. If only spirits could scare the plague, you muse. Your sickle swinging again. The morning stretches, the pile of cut barley growing beside you. Your arms ache, but you don't pause, there's too much at stake. Across the field, Agnes works her own plot, her movements slower than usual. You catch her eye, and she nods, but her face is drawn, her shawl pulled tight. You wonder if she's heard the latest whisper. The blacksmith's wife, strong as an ox, fell ill last night. The village is shrinking, and with it, the hands to reap the harvest. Historians still debate whether the Black Death reshaped feudalism, freeing some serfs as labor grew scarce, but freedom means little when death knocks. You focus on the barley, its rustle a fragile anchor. The sun climbs, warming your back but offering no comfort. You think of your wife, at home with your son, and pray they're spared the fever's touch. The plague is a thief, stealing not just lives but the rhythm of the village, feasts, gossip. Even the church's bells, now tolled too often for the dead. You recall the priest's sermon last week, urging repentance to appease God's wrath. You're not sure if it's sin or bad air, as the wise woman claims, but you keep the straw doll close, just in case. You jest that maybe the doll could guard your cottage, standing sentinel by the door. The thought brings a dry chuckle, but it fades as you wipe sweat from your brow. The field hums with the soft sounds of harvest, sickles swishing, women bundling sheaves, children gathering stray stalks. But the chatter is subdued, the usual laughter absent. You hear a snatch of gossip about a peddler who fled to the hills, claiming the forest is safe. You shake your head, there's no outrunning this. Your world is this field, this village, and now this unseen enemy. You think of the carved vine in the church, its quiet hope, and wonder if faith can hold against such loss. As noon nears, you pause to drink from your flask, the water cool against your parched throat. The straw doll peeks from your belt, its eyes unblinking. You think of your son again, his laughter, and vow to finish this harvest for him, for your wife, for the life you've built. The barley piles grow, but so does the weight in your chest. You glance at Agnes, still cutting, still enduring, and find strength in her stubbornness. The plague may take much, but it won't take your will. The afternoon wanes, the sky softening to a pale gold. You finish your strip, the field a patchwork of stubble and sheaves. You gather your tools, the sickle heavy, and start toward home. The village is hushed, the crosses on doors a silent warning. You pass the straw doll's field, its harvest spirit now your companion. and smiled despite the ache. Tomorrow, you'll face the fields again, the plague, the Lord. But tonight, you'll hold your family close, the doll by the hearth, and let the world's weight wait. The evening air is warm, laced with the sweet scent of ripened grain and the distant hum of voices. You step out of your cottage, the day's labor still heavy in your limbs, but tonight is different. The village is alive, aglow with torches and the promise of a harvest festival, a rare pause in the endless grind. You pull on a cleaner tunic, its wool less patched than your work clothes, and join the stream of neighbors heading to the common. The straw doll from the fields, now tucked by your hearth, seems to wink as you leave, a quiet nod to the joy you're chasing tonight. The Black Death's shadow lingers, but for a few hours, you'll let the music and firelight push it back. You reach the common, a wide patch of trampled grass ringed by flickering torches. The harvest is in, the Lord's granary full, and your own larder holds just enough to face winter. Tonight, the village celebrates, a tradition older than the church's bells. Tables groan under platters of bread, cheese, and roasted turnips, with a barrel of ale tapped for all. You catch the scent of wood smoke and warm dough, your stomach stirring despite the pottage you ate earlier. The year is 1349, and though the plague has thinned the crowd, those who remain are determined to dance, to laugh, to live. You weave through the throng, your wife's hand in yours, her smile a rare gift after months of worry. Your son darts ahead, chasing friends through the crowd, his laughter cutting through the fiddler tune. The music is lively, a reel that sets feet tapping and skirts swirling. You watch Agnes spin with a neighbor, her shawl flapping like a flag. And even old Cedric, propped on a stool, claps in time. You jest to yourself that the fiddler must be a wizard, conjuring joy from such weary souls. The thought brings a grin, but you keep it soft, letting the moment's warmth sink in. A quirky detail catches your eye, a straw effigy, taller than a man, propped near the bonfire. The children call it the Harvest King, a figure woven from the last sheaves, meant to bless next year's crops. They've adorned it with ribbons and a lopsided crown, and you chuckle at its wobbly majesty. The village loves these oddities, straw dolls, carved vines, two-tailed foxes, and this effigy is their king, presiding over the night's revelry. You wonder if it's the straw doll's grandparent. You muse, smirking as you sip ale. If it could dance, it'd outshine us all. The feast begins, and you find a spot at a table, your plate piled with bread and a sliver of cheese. The ale is weak but welcome, its bitterness a contrast to the sweet air. You share a toast with Agnes, her eyes bright despite the lines etched by loss. The plague took her brother, but tonight she laughs, recounting the time the Lord's son tripped into a pig pen. You join in, the story a small rebellion against the manor's shadow. Historians still debate whether festivals like this strengthen peasant bonds or merely distracted from hardship, but you don't care for debates. This night, this ale, this laughter, they're your shield against the dark. The music shifts, slower now, and you take your wife's hand, pulling her to the dance. The grass is cool under your feet, the firelight painting her face in gold. You're no troubadour, your steps clumsy, but she laughs, and the sound is worth every stumble. You think of the fields, the plague, the tides, and push them away. Tonight you're not a serf but a man, spinning under the stars. You jest that if the Lord saw you dance, he'd tax your rhythm. The thought draws a chuckle, shared between you. And for a moment, the world feels light. The children gather round the Harvest King, singing a song about spring and plenty. Your son is among them, his voice clear, and you feel a pang of pride. You recall the straw doll by your hearth, its button eyes, and wonder if it's watching through the flames. The village's quirks, effigies, charms, rain singers, are a thread through your days, weaving joy into toil. You think of Marjorie, who swore the Harvest King spoke to her last year. Absurd, but you let her believe. In a world of hunger and loss, belief is a spark that keeps you warm. As the night deepens, the fire burns low, casting long shadows across the common. You sit with your family, the ale's buzz softening the edges of your fatigue. The fiddler plays a final tune, a haunting melody that hushes the crowd. You think of those missing neighbors, friends, faces lost to the plague. Yet here you are, surrounded by those who endure. You jest that the harvest king must be tired, standing all night with no ale. The thought brings a quiet smile, but it's the village's resilience that truly lifts you. The stars are bright now, the torches fading. You gather your son, his eyes heavy, and start for home, your wife's arm looped through yours. The common grows quiet, the harvest king a silhouette against the embers. You think of the fields, waiting for tomorrow's labor, but tonight, you carry the festival's warmth, a memory to hold through winter. The village, battered but unbroken, is your strength. And as you reach your cottage, the straw doll by the hearth seems to nod, as if it danced with you. The dawn creeps in, soft and gray, wrapping the village in a hush broken only by the cluck of hens and the distant low of cattle. You rise from your straw mattress, the memory of the harvest festival's firelight still flickering in your mind, though its warmth has faded. The air in your cottage is thick with the scent of smoke and last night's pottage. And you pull on your tunic, it seems worn but familiar. Today, you're tending the pigs, a task that feels almost gentle after weeks of harvesting. As you step outside, the cool air brushes your face, carrying the earthy tang of autumn leaves. The harvest king's lopsided crown lingers in your thoughts, a spark of joy now tucked beside the straw doll by your hearth. You trudge to the pig pen, a rickety enclosure of sticks and mud behind your cottage. The sows grunt in greeting, their snouts rooting through scraps and acorns. You scatter a handful of vegetable peelings, watching them scuffle over the meager feast. These pigs are your wealth, fragile as it is, 2 sows and a litter of piglets, each a hope for market day or a winter's meal. But tending them is no simple task. You check their hooves, clear their pen of filth, and mend a gap in the fence, your hands moving with the rhythm of years. The work grounds you, a quiet bond between you and these creatures who, like you, survive on the village's scraps. Your family is the heart of this life, their presence a steady pulse through the grind. You think of last night, after the festival, when you sat by the fire with your wife and son. She mended a cloak, her needle flashing, while you told your son a tale of a clever pig who outwitted a wolf. His laughter, bright as the festival's torches, warmed the cramped cottage more than the flames. In 1349, with the Black Death's shadow still creeping, such moments are treasures, fragile as the piglets snuffling at your feet. You recall the plague's toll, empty cottages, silent lanes, and feel a fierce need to hold your family close, to shield them from a world that takes too much. A quirky detail catches your eye as you work, a small bone charm, hung on the pen's gate, its surface etched with tiny scratches. The wise woman gave it to you, claiming it keeps the pigs healthy. You're skeptical. Pigs seem to thrive on mud and stubbornness. But you leave it be, its faint rattle a comfort, like the straw doll or the rain singer frog. The village weaves these oddities into its days, a tapestry of belief against the chaos of plague and hunger. You smirk, imagining the charm whispering to the sows, urging them to fatten up. If it could charm the Lord Steward, you jest, you'd hang one on every gate. The morning unfolds, the sky lightening to a pale blue. You finish with the pigs and turn to the cottage, where your wife is kneading dough, her hands dusted with rye flour. Your son plays nearby, stacking sticks into a wobbly tower, his chatter a soft counterpoint to the village's quiet. You pause to help him, balancing a stick with exaggerated care, and his giggle is a balm to your weary soul. Historians still debate whether medieval families were as close as modern ones, with some arguing survival trumped sentiment. But you feel your wife's glance, your son's trust, and know this bond is your strength, deeper than any scholar's quill can trace. The pigs grunt, drawing you back to the pen. You notice a piglet limping, its hoof caught in a root. You free it gently, your hands steady despite the calluses, and it scampers off, unharmed. The task reminds you of your wife's care when your son scraped his knee, her soothing words as vital as any poultice. You think of Agnes, alone since the plague took her brother. Yet still sharing her sharp wit at the festival. The village is a family too, its ties forged in shared toil and loss. You jest that the pigs might be your cousins, given how much time you spend with them. The thought brings a dry chuckle, but it's the warmth of home that truly lifts you. Noon approaches, and you sit on a stump, nibbling a crust of bread. The bone charm sways in the breeze, its scratches catching the light. You wonder if the wise woman's right, if it's kept the pigs safe. Maybe it's nonsense, but in a world of floods and fevers, you'll take any help. You think of your son's stick tower, your wife's dough, the festival's dance, small anchors in a stormy sea. The plague may lurk, the Lord may loom, but your family, your village, your pigs, they're yours, and you'll fight for them. The afternoon settles, the village stirring with small sounds, a hammer's tap, a child's shout, the creak of a cart. You return to the cottage. The pigs fed and the pen secure. Your wife offers a tired smile, her hands still floured, and you feel a quiet pride in this life you've built, however humble. The bone charm rattles as you close the gate, a faint echo of the village's stubborn hope. Tomorrow, the fields will call, but tonight, you'll sit by the fire, your family close, and let the world's weight slip away. The morning sun peeks through a veil of clouds, casting a pale glow over the village as you step into the bustling lane. The air hums with the scent of fresh baked bread and the sharp tang of livestock, a lively contrast to the quiet of your cottage. Today is market day, a rare break from the fields, and you carry a small sack of surplus turnips and a piglet tethered by a rope, hoping to barter for a new sickle or a scrap of cloth. Your boots kick up dust as you join the stream of villagers, their voices a chorus of haggling and gossip. The bone charm on the pig pen, rattling in yesterday's breeze, feels like a good omen, and you hum a tune from the harvest festival. The memory of firelight still warm in your chest. You reach the market, a chaotic sprawl of stalls and carts at the village's heart. Peddlers shout their wares, wool, pottery, salted fish, while children weave through the crowd, chasing a stray dog. The air is thick with the smells of roasted chestnuts and unwashed bodies, and you feel a flicker of excitement, rare as a full larder. You set up your modest spot, laying out the turnips and tying the piglet to a post. It squeals, drawing glances, and you pat its flank, hoping it fetches a fair price. Market day is a gamble, a chance to stretch your meager wealth, but also a dance with cunning traders who know you're no merchant. You barter with a weaver, her eyes sharp as she inspects your turnips. She offers a length of coarse linen, enough for a new tunic, and you haggle, your voice steady despite your racing heart. The deal is struck, and you tuck the cloth under your arm, a small victory. Next, a blacksmith eyes the piglet, offering a sickle with a blade less dull than your own. You hesitate. Losing a piglet stings, but a good tool could ease next season's toil. You shake hands, the sickle's weight a promise of better days. You jest to yourself that the piglet's off to a finer life, maybe dining on the blacksmith's scraps. The thought brings a wry smile, but you're too busy scanning the crowd to linger on it. A quirky detail catches your attention, a peddler's stall adorned with a stuffed crow, its glass eyes glinting as if it's watching the market. He claims it's a charm against thieves, though you suspect it's just a way to draw curious eyes. The village loves its oddities, straw dolls, bone charms, harvest kings, and this crow is a cousin to them all. You chuckle, imagining it cawing at pickpockets in the night. If it could guard your turnips, you muse, you'd trade your last apple for it. The crow's stare follows you as you move on, its absurdity a spark in the market's chaos. The morning unfolds, the market a whirlwind of noise and color. You trade a few turnips for a wedge of cheese, its tang a luxury you'll savor tonight. A peddler offers a copper ring, swearing it brings luck, but you pass. Luck's a peddler's promise, not a farmer's truth. You recall the market of 1349, when the Black Death left stalls half empty, traders scarce, and prices soaring. Today, the crowd is thinner still, but the market endures, a pulse of life against the plague's shadow. Historians still debate whether markets empowered peasants or deepened their dependence on lords, who often taxed the trade. You don't care for debates, your concern is the cheese in your sack, the sickle in your hand. The sun climbs, warming the dust at your feet. You pause to sip water, watching Agnes haggle over a basket of apples. Her sharp tongue wins her a deal. And she flashes you a grin, her shawl bright against the crowd. You nod back, grateful for her fire, her refusal to bend. The market is a stage for the village's spirit, gossip, laughter. Small triumphs. You overhear a snippet about a peddler caught selling dyed wool as fine cloth, the scandal rippling through the stalls. You jest that he'd dye the stuffed crow next, passing it off as a phoenix. The thought draws a quiet chuckle, but you keep it to yourself, eyes on a passing cart. Your son appears, tugging your sleeve, his face smudged with dirt. He begs for a honeyed apple, and you relent, trading a turnip for the treat. His smile, sticky and wide, is worth more than the sickle. You think of your wife, at home with the dough, and plan to surprise her with the cheese. These small acts, bartering, sharing, enduring, bind your family, your village, through seasons of loss. You recall the festival's dance, your wife's laughter, and feel a warmth that no market can sell. As noon nears, the crowd thins, stalls emptying. You pack your sack, the piglet gone, the turnips nearly traded. The stuffed crow watches from its perch, and you give it a mock salute, amused by its silent reign. The market has been kind today, but you know its fleeting gifts. Tomorrow, the fields will call, the Lord's shadow looming. You start for home, your son skipping beside you, the sickle a steady weight. The village settles, its pulse slowing, but its stubbornness, yours, endures, as fixed as the crow's glassy stare. The twilight settles over the village like a soft blanket, the air cool and heavy with the scent of wood smoke and damp leaves. You step out of your cottage. The warmth of the market day's triumphs, the new sickle, the wedge of cheese, still lingering in your mind. Tonight you're checking the snares you set in the woods, hoping for a rabbit to bolster tomorrow's pottage. Your boots crunch on the frosty path, the stars just beginning to prick the sky. The stuffed crow from the market, with its glassy stare, feels like a distant jest now, but the village's quirks cling to you, shaping your steps as surely as the Lord's demands. You slip into the forest, its shadows deep and quiet, broken only by the rustle of leaves and the hoot of an owl. The snares, hidden near a bramble patch, are your secret, a small defiance against the Lord's hunting laws. You move carefully, your breath clouding in the chill, and check each loop of twine. The first is empty, but the second holds a rabbit, its fur soft and still. You free it gently, tucking it into your sack, and reset the snare. This is no grand feast, but it's yours, a gift from the woods that the steward can't tax. You think of the bone charm on the pig pen, its faint rattle, and wonder if the forest has its own charms, woven into the roots and shadows. Superstition is a quiet thread through your life, as vital as the rye in your larder. The village thrives on it, straw dolls, rain singers, carved vines, and you're no exception. You recall the winter of 1349, when the Black Death tightened its grip, and the wise woman burned sage to cleanse the air. You hung a sprig of holly over your door, whispering a prayer to keep the fever at bay. It worked, or so you tell yourself. And the holly is still there, brittle but unbroken. You jest to yourself that the rabbit must have dodged the forest spirits, too polite to get caught by their tricks. The thought brings a soft chuckle, but you keep it low, wary of the wood's silence. A quirky detail catches your eye as you turn back, a tree stump, its surface carved with a crude eye, staring blindly into the dusk. The children call it the Watcher, claiming it guards the forest from witches. You trace the carving, amused by its weathered glare, and wonder who etched it, maybe Thomas, the mystic, dreaming of magic. The village's love for such oddities, harvest kings, fairy rings, stuffed crows, feels like a shield, a way to tame the unknown. You smirk, imagining the Watcher blinking at the rabbit in your sack. If it could snare the Lord's taxes, you muse, you'd carve an eye on every tree. The path home is familiar, your steps sure despite the dark. You think of your wife, kneading dough by the fire, and your son, probably begging for another pig and wolf tale. Their faces anchor you. A warmth stronger than any forest charm. Historians still debate whether medieval superstitions empowered peasants or trapped them in fear, with some arguing they offered hope where faith and lords fell short. You don't care for debates. The holly over your door, the watcher's eye, the wise woman's sage, they're your armor, as real as the sickle in your shed. The village comes into view, its thatched roofs silvered by starlight. You pass Agnes's cottage, her window aglow, and hear her humming a tune from the festival. The sound lifts you, a reminder of the ties that bind this battered place. You recall a story from market day, a neighbor who buried a coin under his hearth, swearing it kept ghosts away. You shook your head then, but now, with the rabbit in your sack, you understand. Superstition is a bargain with the world, a plea for control when floods, plagues, and lords offer none. You jest that maybe you should bury a turnip under your bed, see if it summons a better harvest. The thought draws a quiet laugh, but it fades as you near home. The forest edge gives way to the village lane, the air now sharp with the smell of burning peat. You think of the straw doll by your hearth, its button eyes watching the flames. Tonight, you'll add the rabbit to the pottage, a rare treat, and tell your son about the watcher, spinning its stare into a tale of forest guardians. These stories, like the charms and carvings, are your legacy, small sparks passed to the next generation. You recall the market's cheese, the festival's dance, and feel a stubborn pride in this life, however hard. The cottage door creaks as you step inside, the fire's glow wrapping you like an embrace. Your wife looks up, her hands floured, and your son rushes to see the rabbit, his eyes wide. You set the sack down, the holly above the door catching the light. The watcher, the snares, the village's whispers, they're all part of this world, as fixed as the stars. You jest that the rabbit must have bribed the forest spirits with a carrot. Your son giggles, and for a moment, the weight of the fields, the plague, the lord slips away, leaving only the warmth of home. The winter dawn is sharp, its icy breath seeping through the cracks of your cottage as you stir from a restless sleep. The air inside is thick with the scent of smoke and the faint must of straw, the fire reduced to glowing embers. You rise, your joints stiff from the cold, and pull on your heaviest cloak. It's wool patched but thick enough to blunt the chill. Outside, the village is locked in frost, the ground hard as stone, the sky a flat, unyielding gray. The rabbit from the forest snares, now a memory of last week's pottage, feels like a distant luxury. Today, you're rationing what's left in the larder, bracing for the long, cruel months ahead. You step into the yard, your boots crunching on frozen mud. The pig pen is silent, the sows huddled together for warmth, their breath steaming in the air. You toss them a handful of shriveled turnips, your fingers numb despite the cloth wrapped around them. Winter is no mere season, it's a siege starving the land, your family, your hope. You think of the great famine of 1315 to 1317. A ghost story told by the elders, when snow buried fields and hunger took whole families. The winter of 1349 is kinder, perhaps, but only by degrees. Your larder holds barley, a few onions, and a sack of dried peas, enough to stretch if you're careful. If you're lucky. You check the cottage's stores, lifting the larder's wooden lid with a familiar dread. The barley sack is lighter than you'd like, its grains coarse but precious. You measure out a handful for today's porridge, your wife's careful hands already at work by the fire. Your son watches, his small frame bundled in a blanket, his questions about knights and dragons quieted by the cold. You recall the harvest festival, its fleeting warmth, and wish you could bottle that firelight for days like this. You jest to yourself that the Lord's granary must be cozy, stuffed with your grain while you count peas. The thought sours, but it spurs you to check the snares again, hoping for another rabbit. A quirky detail catches your eye as you head to the woods, a small bundle of twigs tied to the cottage door. a charm against winter's bite. The wise woman left it, muttering about frost spirits that steal warmth. You're not sure you believe, but you let it stay. Its brutal shape a cousin to the holly sprig and the watcher's eye. The village clings to these quirks, straw dolls, bone charms, twig bundles, as if they could bargain with the seasons. You smirk, imagining the twigs scolding the frost into retreat. If they could warm the pigs, you muse, you tie one to every snout. The forest is a maze of bare branches, the air so cold it stings your lungs. You check the snares, your fingers fumbling with frozen twine, but they're empty, the rabbit's wiser than you today. The silence is heavy, broken only by the creak of ice in the trees. You think of your wife, stirring porridge, and your son, his cheeks too thin. Winter demands more than food, it takes strength, will, the courage to face another gray dawn. Historians still debate whether medieval winters were harsher than modern ones, with some blaming colder climates, others poor harvests. You don't need scrolls to know the truth, it's in the ache of your hands, the hunger in your gut. Back at the cottage, you huddle by the fire, its meager heat a lifeline. Your wife serves the porridge, thin but warm, and you eat in silence, savoring each gritty spoonful. The twig bundle sways in a draft, and you wonder if it's working. If the frost spirits are listening, you jest that maybe you should offer the fire a turnip, see if it burns brighter. Your son giggles, a spark in the gloom, and you ruffle his hair, grateful for his light. The village is quiet, its pulse slowed by cold, but you hear Agnes's voice outside, calling her cow. Her stubbornness, like yours, keeps winter at bay. The day drags. Tasks reduced to survival, mending a cloak, patching the roof, checking the pigs. You think of the market's cheese, now gone, and the sickle, waiting for spring. Each act is a defiance, a refusal to let winter win. You recall a neighbor who burned his fence for warmth last year, his desperation a warning. You won't go that far, not yet. You jest that the twig bundle might make better kindling, but you leave it be, its presence a small comfort, like the straw doll by the hearth. As dusk falls, the cold tightens its grip. The stars sharpen a cloudless sky. You sit by the fire, your family close, the porridge pot empty. Your wife mends a sock, her needle steady, and your son draws in the dirt, humming a festival tune. These moments, fragile as frost, are your strength, a warmth no winter can steal. You think of the village, its empty cottages, and feel a quiet pride in those who endure. Cedric, Agnes, you. The twig bundle creaks, and you smile, half believing it's cheering you on. Tomorrow, you'll face the cold again, but tonight you rest, the fire's glow your shield. The winter's grip loosens slightly, the morning air still biting but laced with a faint promise of spring. You step out of your cottage, the frost under your boots crunching like brittle glass, and breathe in the sharp scent of pine and thawing earth. The twig bundle on the door, now brittle and faded, sways as you pass, a quiet reminder of the village's stubborn hope. Today, you're repairing a fence in the common pasture, a task to keep the Lord's sheep from straying, but your mind is elsewhere. Whispers of unrest, tales of serfs defying their lords, have reached the village, carried by a peddler's cart and the wind. You pull your cloak tight and head to work, the weight of those stories heavier than the mallet in your hand. You reach the pasture, its grass sparse and dusted with frost. The fence is a patchwork of old wood and new, each post a testament to years of mending. You hammer a nail, the sound sharp in the quiet, and think of the peasants' revolt of 1381, a distant fire that burned long after the Black Death's shadow. Serfs and freemen, crushed by taxes and hunger, rose against their lords, demanding freedom. The revolt failed, its leaders hanged. But its echo lingers in the village's whispers, a neighbor's quiet curse, a peddler's tale of burned manners. You drive another nail, your hand steady but your heart uneasy. Defiance is a spark, but sparks can burn. The cold numbs your fingers, and you pause to rub them, your breath clouding in the air. The Lord's manor looms on the hill, its stone walls a reminder of his power. You owe him labor, grain, even the air you breathe, it seems. The steward's peacock feather, bobbing through the fields, is a jest you share with Agnes, but the taxes are no joke. You recall last month, when he demanded an extra day's work to repair his stables. Your own fence waited, your pigs went unfed, and your son asked why you bowed so low. You jest to yourself that the steward's feather might lead a revolt, flapping rebellion in the wind. The thought brings a dry chuckle, but it fades as you hammer again. A quirky detail catches your eye, a small ribbon, red as a berry, tied to a fence post. The children say it's a charm for wandering sheep, ensuring they return home. You smile. Her shawl bright against the frost, and nod, grateful for her fire. The whispers of revolt, though, pull you back. You've heard of villages where serfs refuse to plow. Their fields left fallow in protest. The Lord's men came, swift and brutal, and the fields were plowed with blood. You weigh the risk, defiance could free you, or break you. Historians still debate whether such revolts sowed the seeds of change, loosening feudal ties, or merely hardened the Lord's grip. You don't know the future, only the fence under your hands. The manor on the hill. The sun climbs, its weak light warming your back. You finish a section of fence, the post straighter than before, and pause to sip water from a flask. The red ribbon flutters, catching your eye, and you think of your wife, her steady hands, your son's laughter. They're why you endure, why you hammer nails instead of raising fists. You recall the festival's dance, the market's cheese, moments that anchor you. You jest that maybe the ribbon could charm the steward's heart, make him forget a tax or two. The thought draws a quiet laugh. But it's the village's resilience that truly lifts you. Noon nears, and you move to another post, the mallet's rhythm steadying your thoughts. The whispers of revolt are tempting. But they're a peddler's tale, half true and dangerous. You think of Cedric, his cough worse each winter, still plowing beside you. You think stubbornly, refusing to bend. His quiet endurance is your rebellion, small but real. You hammer harder, the nails sinking deep, and feel a stubborn pride in this life, however hard. As the afternoon fades, you gather your tools. The fence stronger now, the sheep safe for another day. The red ribbon sways, a bright defiance against the frost. You start for home, the village settling into dusk. Its thatch silvered by early stars. The manor looms, but so does your will, quiet as the ribbons flutter. Tomorrow you'll face the fields, the Lord, the whispers. But tonight, you'll sit by the fire, your family close, and let the world's weight wait, the revolt a spark you'll carry, unlit but warm. The spring dawn unfurls gently, its light spilling over the village like a soft promise, bathing the thatched roofs in hues of pink and gold. You step out of your cottage, the air fresh with the scent of new grass and the delicate sweetness of blooming hawthorn. The frost has melted away, the earth yielding softly under your boots, and the twig bundle on the door, now a brittle keepsake, seems to nod in quiet approval as you pass. Today, you're sowing barley in the fields, a task that carries the weight of hope after winter's long siege. The red ribbon from the pasture, the distant whispers of revolt, linger faintly in your mind, but they fade into the background, softened by the gentle rhythm of a new season. You sling a sack of seeds over your shoulder and walk, your heart steady, your hands ready for the earth's embrace. You reach the fields, their furrows dark and open, the soil cool and damp beneath your fingers. You scatter seeds with a rhythm honed by years, each one a whispered prayer for a harvest that might ease the hunger, lighten the Lord's taxes, and carry you through another year. The sun rises higher, its warmth kissing your back, and the village stirs around you. Carts creak along the lanes, children's laughter dances on the breeze. And Agnes's voice, sharp and familiar, carries from a nearby plot. This is your legacy, not carved in stone or sung in ballads, but etched deep in the earth, in the calluses on your hands. In the quiet endurance you've woven through plague, winter, and the Lord's unyielding demands. You think of the peasants' revolt, its brief, fiery spark years from now. And know your rebellion is softer but no less fierce. Every seed you sow, every day you rise, is a quiet stand against a world that asks too much. The fields hum with life. the air alive with the buzz of bees and the rustle of wind through the first green shoots. You pause to wipe sweat from your brow, your eyes tracing the horizon where the Lord's manor sits. Its stone walls softened by the morning's light. You've given him your grain, your labor, your years, but you've kept something precious for yourself, your family, your village. The stories that bind you. You recall the harvest festival's warm firelight, the market's wedge of cheese, the rabbit snared in the forest's hush. These moments, small as the seeds in your hand, have grown into a life that, for all its hardship, is yours to claim. You jest to yourself that the Lord might try to tax your dreams next, but they'd be far too heavy for his creaking carts. The thought brings a soft chuckle, a fleeting spark in the morning's calm. A quirky detail catches your eye, a small stone, painted with a crude sun, half buried in the furrow at your feet. The children must have placed it there, a charm for warm days and bountiful harvests. You smile, brushing dirt from its bright surface, and think of the village's many oddities: straw dolls with button eyes, bone charms that rattle in the breeze, the watcher's eye carved into a forest stump. This sunstone is their kin. A tiny burst of hope nestled in the soil. You leave it where it lies, picturing your son's small hands painting it, his heart full of faith in the seasons to come. You muse that if stones could grow barley, you'd plant a whole field of them. The image lingers, a gentle amusement as you scatter another handful of seeds. The morning stretches on, your sack growing lighter with each step. You think of your wife, at home with her loom, her hands weaving cloth with the same care you give the fields. Your son is with her, likely chasing the hens or stacking sticks, his laughter a melody that carries you through the day's toil. You recall winter's thin porridge, the festival's joyous dance, and feel a quiet pride in the life you've built, however humble it may be. Historians still debate whether medieval peasants found meaning in their endless labor, with some claiming it was mere survival, others seeing a deeper resilience that shaped the centuries. You don't need their debates. Your meaning lives in the seeds you plant, the family you hold close, the village that stands unbowed against the years. The sun arcs higher, its light catching the sunstone in the furrow, making it glow like a tiny ember. You think of the wise woman's herbs, the harvest king's lopsided crown, the red ribbon fluttering on the fence, small anchors that have steadied you through storms of flood, plague, and lordly greed. You've passed these quirks to your son, along with tales of clever pigs and forest guardians, of rain singers and painted stones. They're your legacy, as vital as the barley you sow, a thread of wonder and hope woven through the generations. You jest that maybe he'll carve a son on the manor's gate one day, just to see the steward's peacock feather droop in shock. The thought draws a quiet laugh, but it's the future you're sowing for him that truly warms your heart. Noon draws near, and you pause to eat a crust of bread, its familiar grit a comfort in your hand. The fields stretch around you, a patchwork of green and brown, a living testament to your labor. You glance at Agnes, bundling sheaves in her plot, her shawl a bright defiance against the earth's demands. You think of Cedric, his cough softened by spring, still plowing beside you with a stubbornness that mirrors your own. The village is battered but unbroken, its pulse beating strong in every seed, every shared story, every hard-won day. You recall the Black Death's long shadow, the winter's biting cold, and feel a deep pride in those who remain, their resilience a light no manor's walls can dim. As the afternoon settles, you finish your strip of field, the sack empty, the furrows sown with care. You gather your tools, the sickle resting in the shed for the harvest to come, and turn toward home. The sunstone glints in the earth, a small promise of summer's warmth. You pass Agnes, who offers a tired nod, and you return it, a silent bond between those who sow and endure. The manor looms on its hill, but so does your will, quiet as the seeds now hidden beneath the soil. You think of your cottage, the fire's gentle glow, your wife's steady smile. Tonight you'll tell your son about the sunstone, weaving it into a tale of fields that bloom under starlight, of hope that grows even in the hardest earth. You reach the village, its thatched roofs golden in the fading light. The air is warm, the hawthorns sent a soft farewell to the day. You push open the cottage door, your son's laughter rushing to meet you, your wife's hands dusted with flour from the day's dough. The straw doll sits by the hearth, its button eyes catching the fire's glow, and the twig bundle creaks faintly above the door. You settle by the fire, your family close, and feel a deep, abiding warmth. This life, its fields, its charms, its ceaseless struggles, is yours, and you've carried it with a resilience that history may never name but will always hold. The seeds are sown, the story told. And now you can close your eyes and let the currents of time take you away, drifting on the quiet strength of a farmer's heart.